I was under the kitchen sink, elbow deep in a leak that had been dripping for 3 weeks, when I heard my wife laughing in the living room. "He's just my personal handyman," Sarah snorted to her friends. "At least he's useful for something." At my own damn anniversary party. That was the moment something in me broke. The wrench slipped from my grip and clanged against the pipe. 22 years of marriage, and this is what I get? I crawled out from under the sink, my back screaming from the awkward position, and stood in the doorway watching my wife hold court with her law firm colleagues. She didn't even notice me standing there, water stains on my shirt, grease under my fingernails. "Tom's always been the blue-collar type," she continued, swirling her wine glass. "I keep telling him he should take some classes, maybe learn something useful. Learn something useful. I built this house with my own hands. Every beam, every fixture, every goddamn tile in the bathroom she primps in every morning. But sure, Sarah, tell me about useful." Her sister Jennifer nodded along like a bobblehead. "You're so patient with him, Sarah." "I don't know how you do it." Patient, right. Like I'm some charity case she's graciously putting up with. I cleared my throat. "Leaks fixed." Sarah barely glanced over. "Great. Can you clean up the mess? We're trying to have a conversation here." The mess. The mess from fixing the problem she'd been nagging me about for weeks. I grabbed a towel and wiped down the cabinet, listening to them dissect my inadequacies like I wasn't even there. "The Hendersons are renovating their kitchen," Jennifer said. "Cost them $40,000, but it looks amazing. Very modern." "Oh, I know," Sarah replied. "I keep showing Tom pictures, but you know how he is about spending money." "How I am about spending money. I'm the one who earns it. Every dollar that pays for her wine, her clothes, her goddamn law school loans that we're still paying off 15 years later." I finished cleaning and headed to the garage. My sanctuary. The one place in this house where I could think without Sarah's voice cutting through my skull like a rusty blade. My phone buzzed, a text from my buddy Mike at the boxing gym. "Beer later? You look like you need it. Smart man." I'd been going to Mike's gym for 10 years, ever since I turned 40 and realized I was getting soft around the middle. Boxing kept me sane. Mike kept me grounded. I texted back, "Yeah, give me an hour." The party wound down around 9. Sarah's friends filtered out, air-kissing and making plans for lunch dates I'd never be invited to. Jennifer lingered, of course. She lived in the guest room above our garage, had been there for 6 months since her latest divorce. "Temporary," Sarah had said. "Just until she gets back on her feet." Jennifer's idea of getting back on her feet involved sleeping until noon and critiquing everything I did. The way I mowed the lawn, the way I loaded the dishwasher. The way I breathed, probably. "Tom," Sarah called as I headed for the door. "Where are you going?" "Mike's. It's a school night." "A school night. I'm 43 years old and my wife is treating me like a teenager. I'll be back by 11. Make it 10. Jennifer and I want to watch a movie, and you know how loud your truck is." My truck. The one thing in my life that was completely mine. A 1987 Ford F-150 that I'd restored from the ground up. Sarah hated it. Said it was embarrassing, that her colleagues probably thought we were poor. We weren't poor. We just weren't rich enough for Sarah's taste. Mike's gym sat in a strip mall between a Chinese restaurant and a tax preparation office. The neon sign flickered, casting red shadows across the parking lot. Inside, the place smelled like sweat and determination. Honest smells. Mike was behind the bar he'd installed last year, polishing glasses. The gym doubled as a neighborhood hangout after hours. Nothing fancy, just folding chairs and a mini fridge full of beer. "You look like hell," Mike said, sliding a bottle across the bar. "Feel like it too. Anniversary party that bad?" I told him about the handyman comment, about Jennifer's constant presence, about Sarah's $40,000 kitchen dreams. Mike listened without judgment. That's what I liked about him. 20 years of friendship, and he'd never once told me what I should do about my marriage. She's changing, I said. Or maybe I'm just noticing it now. People don't change, Mike replied. They just stop pretending. The bar started filling up with the usual crowd. Joe from the auto parts store, Danny who ran the hardware shop down the street, working guys like me, guys who understood what it meant to build something with your hands. Tom, Danny called out, heard Sarah's making partner at the firm. That's big news, making partner. Sarah had been talking about it for months, the long hours, the important cases, the networking events I was never invited to. Her whole world was expanding while mine stayed exactly the same. Yeah, I said. Big news. Must be nice having a lawyer in the family, Joe added. Free legal advice. If only he knew. Sarah treated her legal expertise like state secrets. Whenever I asked about contracts or business stuff, she'd give me the same response. You wouldn't understand the complexities. My phone buzzed. Sarah, where are you? It's 10:15. I showed Mike the text. He shook his head. Brother, you're living in a prison. Maybe he was right. But it was my prison. I'd built it, board by board, compromise by compromise, and now I was trapped inside it. I drove home through empty streets, my truck's engine rumbling like a contented animal. The house was dark, except for the living room window. Sarah and Jennifer were probably halfway through some romantic comedy, sharing a bottle of wine and talking about how disappointing men were. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the house I'd built. Every shingle on the roof, every board on the deck, every flower in the garden that Sarah took credit for when the neighbors complimented her landscaping. Inside, I could hear them laughing. High, sharp sounds that cut through the night air like breaking glass. Tomorrow would be the same as today. Sarah would drink her coffee and complain about something I'd done wrong. Jennifer would make passive-aggressive comments about the temperature, the TV volume, the way I chewed my cereal. I'd go to work, come home, fix whatever needed fixing, and pretend I didn't notice the way my wife looked at me like I was a piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. But tonight, sitting in my truck in my own driveway, I felt something shift. A small crack in the foundation of my patience. Not enough to bring the whole structure down, but enough to let in a sliver of cold air. I turned off the engine and went inside. The movie was still playing, some Hugh Grant thing where the charming British guy gets the successful American woman. Sarah and Jennifer were curled up on opposite ends of the couch, wine glasses empty, looking cozy and content. How was the gym? Sarah asked, without looking away from the screen. Fine. Good. Jennifer and I were talking about Thanksgiving. Her ex-husband wants to take the kids to his mother's this year, so she'll be staying here. Staying here. Of course she would be, because my house had become Jennifer's house, and I was just the maintenance guy who happened to sleep in the master bedroom. Great, I said. Sarah finally looked at me. You don't sound enthusiastic. It's fine, Sarah. Whatever you want. It's not about what I want. It's about family. Jennifer needs support right now. Jennifer needs support. Jennifer needs a place to stay. Jennifer needs. What about what I need? But I didn't say that. I just nodded and headed upstairs to bed, leaving them to their movie and their wine, and their comfortable assumption that I'd always be there to pay the bills and fix the leaks and keep my mouth shut about everything else. In the bathroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Still in decent shape thanks to Mike's gym, but there were lines around my eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Gray in my hair that Sarah kept suggesting I color. Signs of a life half-lived, half-wasted on people who saw me as a convenience rather than a person. I brushed my teeth and climbed into bed. Sarah would be up in an hour, smelling like wine, and expecting me to pretend everything was normal. And I would pretend because that's what I did. I pretended that her comments didn't hurt, that Jennifer's presence didn't bother me, that I was content being the invisible man in my own life. But as I lay there in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of the movie downstairs, I felt that crack in my patience widen just a little bit more. 3 days later, I found the texts. It was a Tuesday morning, and Sarah had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she showered. Her phone was plugged in next to it, screen facing up. I wasn't snooping, just moving it to wipe down the counter, when a message notification popped up. "Can't wait to see you tonight." Same place? David, her boss at the law firm. The senior partner who'd been mentoring her toward that promotion she wanted so badly. My hand froze over the phone. I shouldn't look. I knew I shouldn't look. But something cold and sharp twisted in my gut, and before I could stop myself, I was reading. The conversation went back weeks, months, little messages that started professional and gradually became something else entirely. "Working late again tonight. Tom's at his gym thing, so no rush getting home. You deserve better than this, Sarah. Someone who appreciates your ambition. I know. Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd made different choices. It's never too late to make new ones." My hands were shaking. 22 years of marriage, and she was having an affair with her boss. The cliché was almost funny, except nothing about this felt funny at all. I scrolled further back, my heart hammering against my ribs. There were photos, nothing explicit, but intimate enough. Sarah in a hotel room I didn't recognize, wearing lingerie I'd never seen. David's hand on her shoulder at what looked like a restaurant. The shower was still running upstairs. I grabbed Sarah's laptop and opened her email. Same password she'd used for everything since college, our anniversary date. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her sent folder was a gold mine of betrayal. Emails to David about weekend getaways I thought were work conferences. Messages to Jennifer asking her to cover for her if I called. A long thread with her sister about finally being happy and not settling anymore. Not settling. That's what I was to her. Something she'd settled for. I heard the shower shut off and quickly closed everything, putting the laptop and phone back exactly where I'd found them. Then I stood there, gripping the counter, trying to process what I'd just learned. Sarah came downstairs 10 minutes later, hair still damp, wearing the blue dress I'd always liked. She looked beautiful. She looked like a stranger. "You're up early," she said, kissing my cheek like she had every morning for 2 decades. Couldn't sleep. "Everything okay?" "Everything okay." My wife was cheating on me with her boss, planning weekend getaways while I thought she was working, and confiding in her sister about how much she'd settled by marrying me. But sure, everything was fine. "Yeah," I said, "just thinking about work stuff." She poured coffee into her travel mug, the one I'd bought her last Christmas with "World's Best Lawyer" printed on the side. "I might be late tonight. Big case prep. Big case prep. Right." "With David?" She didn't even flinch. "Among others." You know how it is. I knew how it was, all right. I just hadn't known I knew. After Sarah left, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my coffee. 22 years. 2 decades of building a life together, and she was throwing it away for some silver-haired partner who probably saw her as just another conquest. Jennifer wandered downstairs around 10, wearing one of my old t-shirts and pajama pants. She'd made herself completely at home in my house, treating it like her personal bed and breakfast. "Morning, Tom," she said, heading straight for the coffee maker. "Sarah left early today. Work stuff. She's been working a lot lately. But I guess that's what it takes to make partner." Jennifer had no idea about the affair. At least, I didn't think she did. But the way she said it, with just a hint of something knowing in her voice, made me wonder. "Jennifer," I said carefully, "has Sarah mentioned anything about her work situation? Anything specific about David?" She turned around, coffee mug in hand, and gave me a look I couldn't quite read. "David's her boss, Tom. Of course she mentions him. I mean anything else. Anything that seemed unusual." Jennifer sat down across from me. "Why are you asking?" "Just curious about her work environment. She's been stressed lately. Sarah's ambitious. She always has been. Sometimes that means making sacrifices. Making sacrifices." There was definitely something in her tone now. something that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. What kind of sacrifices? Jennifer sipped her coffee and studied my face. The kind that successful people make, Tom. The kind you probably wouldn't understand. There it was. The same condescending tone Sarah used, the same assumption that I was too simple to grasp the complexities of their sophisticated world. Try me. Look, Tom, I love my sister. And I know she loves you. But Sarah's changing. She's growing. Sometimes people grow in different directions. Are you saying she's outgrowing me? I'm saying that Sarah deserves to be happy. And if that means making some difficult choices. She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. The message was clear. Jennifer knew about the affair, and she was okay with it. More than okay. She was encouraging it. I stood up from the table. I need to get to work. Tom. Jennifer's voice stopped me at the door. Whatever you're thinking about doing, don't. Sarah's finally found something that makes her happy. Don't ruin it for her. Don't ruin it for her. My wife was cheating on me, and her sister was worried that I might ruin it for her. I drove to the job site in a daze. We were renovating a kitchen for the Millers, a retired couple who'd been married 45 years. They still held hands when they thought no one was looking, still finished each other's sentences, still acted like they actually liked each other. Marriage is work, Mrs. Miller told me while I installed their new cabinets, but it's good work. The kind that builds something beautiful over time. I nodded and kept working, wondering what Sarah and I had built over time. A house, sure, a shared history. But something beautiful? Looking back now, I wasn't sure we'd ever had that. My phone buzzed around lunch, a text from Sarah. Definitely working late tonight. Don't wait up. Don't wait up. Because she'd be in some hotel room with David, doing things she hadn't done with me in years. I called Mike. I need to talk to someone, I said when he answered. Bad day? Bad life. Come by the gym after work. I'll break out the good beer. The afternoon dragged by. Every cabinet I hung, every tile I laid, every screw I drove felt like busy work. My hands were moving, but my mind was stuck in an endless loop, replaying those text messages, those emails, that conversation with Jennifer. Sarah was cheating. Jennifer knew and approved. I was the outsider in my own marriage, the inconvenient husband who was too stupid to realize his wife had moved on without him. By the time I got to Mike's gym, I was ready to hit something. Fortunately, Mike had heavy bags for exactly that purpose. Talk first, then punch things, he said, handing me a beer and settling into his usual spot behind the makeshift bar. I told him everything. The texts, the emails, the photos, Jennifer's casual admission that she knew and didn't care. Mike listened without interrupting, his face getting darker with each detail. How long? He asked when I finished. Months, at least. Maybe longer. And her sister's covering for her. Encouraging her, more like. Mike was quiet for a long moment, turning his beer bottle in slow circles on the bar. What are you going to do? I don't know. You could confront her. And then what? She denies it, gaslights me, tells me I'm paranoid. You could leave. And go where? That's my house, Mike. I built it. Every board, every nail, every fixture. Why should I be the one to leave? So what's the alternative? That was the question, wasn't it? What was the alternative? I could pretend I didn't know. Go back to being the invisible husband who fixed leaks and paid bills while his wife screwed her boss. I could confront her and endure whatever lies and manipulation followed. I could leave and start over at 43 with nothing but my truck and my tools, or I could do something else entirely. I want to make them pay, I said quietly. Mike raised an eyebrow. Them? Sarah, David, Jennifer, all of them. They think I'm some stupid blue-collar guy who doesn't understand their sophisticated games. They think they can humiliate me, and I'll just take it. Tom, no, listen. For 22 years, I've been the good husband, the provider, the fixer, I've swallowed every insult, every condescending comment, every suggestion that I'm not good enough for Sarah's new life. And this is what I get. I took a long pull of beer, feeling something cold and calculating settle in my chest. They want to treat me like I'm nothing? Fine, but I'm going to show them exactly what nothing looks like when it decides to bite back. Mike studied my face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to stop being the victim in my own life. Don't do anything stupid, Tom. Stupid would be pretending this isn't happening. Stupid would be letting them destroy my life while I smile and nod and fix their leaks. I finished my beer and stood up. I'm not going to be stupid anymore, Mike. I'm going to be smart. And when I'm done, they're going to wish they'd never underestimated the dumb contractor. The drive home was different this time. Instead of dreading the empty house and the lies waiting for me, I felt focused, clear. For the first time in months, maybe years, I had a purpose. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway. Of course it wasn't. She was probably at the Marriott downtown, the one with the restaurant David had mentioned in his emails. Jennifer was in the living room watching TV, a glass of wine in her hand. My wine, from the bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. How was work? She asked without looking away from the screen. Educational. Something in my tone made her glance over. Everything okay? Perfect, I said. Everything's absolutely perfect. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. I spent the next week watching, learning, becoming the kind of husband Sarah had always wanted me to be. Invisible. She came home late Tuesday night, slipping into bed around midnight with some story about depositions running long. Wednesday, it was client meetings. Thursday, case research. Each lie came easier than the last, and she told them with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been challenged. Jennifer played her part perfectly, asking just the right questions to make Sarah's stories sound believable. How did the Miller deposition go? Did you get that brief filed on time? You're working so hard, Sarah. Tom's lucky to have such a dedicated wife. Lucky me. But I was learning things they didn't know I was learning. Sarah's patterns, her tells, her weaknesses, David's schedule, his habits, his vulnerabilities, Jennifer's secrets, the ones she thought she'd hidden from her simple brother-in-law. Friday night, Sarah announced she was going to a legal conference in Boston for the weekend. Networking, she explained over dinner. David thinks it would be good for my career. I'm sure he does, I said. She looked at me sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that David seems very invested in your success. He's my mentor, Tom. That's what mentors do. Mentor, right. I wondered if that's what they called it in the hotel room. When do you leave? Tomorrow morning. I'll be back Sunday evening. Drive safe. That night, after Sarah fell asleep, I used her laptop again. The Boston conference was real enough, but Sarah wasn't registered for it. Instead, I found hotel reservations for 2 at a bed and breakfast in Vermont. The Riverside Inn, known for its romantic getaways and couples packages. David had booked it under his name. 2 nights, premium suite, champagne service. All very romantic for a legal conference. Saturday morning, I helped Sarah load her car. She kissed me goodbye like the devoted wife she'd never been, promised to call when she arrived safely, and drove off to spend the weekend screwing her boss in a Vermont love nest. Jennifer emerged from the garage apartment around noon, looking pleased with herself. Quiet weekend ahead, she said. Just you and me. Actually, I'm going to visit my mother. Your mother? You never visit your mother. She's been asking to see me. I figured this was a good time. It wasn't entirely a lie. My mother had been asking to see me. She'd been asking for 6 months ever since her arthritis got bad enough that she needed help around the house. Sarah had discouraged the visits, claiming we were too busy, that my mother was manipulative, that I needed to focus on my own family first. My own family. The wife who was cheating on me, and the sister-in-law who was helping her do it. How long will you be gone? Jennifer asked. Just overnight, back tomorrow evening. Okay, I might have some friends over if that's all right. It's your house too, I said, meaning it more than she knew. I drove to my mother's place in Millfield, about 2 hours north. She lived in the same house where I'd grown up, a small ranch that my father had built in the 70s. It needed work, new gutters, fresh paint, some plumbing updates, but it was solid, built to last, like everything my father had made. "Tommy," she said when I knocked on the door. "What a surprise." "Hi, Mom. Thought I'd come help with those projects you mentioned." She hugged me, and for a moment, I was 10 years old again, running to her when the neighborhood kids picked on me for being too small, too quiet, too different. "Is Sarah with you?" "She's at a conference." "Of course she is. That woman's always working." My mother had never liked Sarah. She'd been polite about it for 22 years, but I'd always known. Sarah was too ambitious, too focused on herself, too quick to dismiss the things that mattered to people like us. "She's trying to make partner," I said automatically. "And what are you trying to make, Tommy?" It was a simple question, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. What was I trying to make? I'd spent so many years focused on what Sarah wanted, what Sarah needed, what would make Sarah happy, that I'd forgotten to ask what I wanted. "I don't know, Mom." "Well, you'd better figure it out soon. Life's too short to spend it making other people's dreams come true while your own die on the vine." We spent the afternoon fixing her kitchen faucet and replacing some loose floorboards in the hallway. Simple work, but satisfying. The kind of work where you could see the results immediately, where fixing something actually made it better instead of just delaying the next breakdown. "Your father would be proud of you," she said over dinner. "You've got his hands." His heart, too. Sarah doesn't think much of my hands. Sarah doesn't think much of anything that doesn't directly benefit Sarah. "Mom." I know. She's your wife, and I should be supportive. But Tommy, I've watched you disappear a little more each year. You used to have dreams, plans. Remember when you wanted to start your own construction company? I remembered. Right after we got married, I'd had big plans. My own crew, my own jobs, building custom homes for people who appreciated quality work. Sarah had talked me out of it. Too risky, she'd said. Too much uncertainty. Better to work for someone else, have steady income, benefits, security. Security. I'd traded my dreams for security, and now even that was gone. "It's not too late," my mother said quietly. "You're only 43. That's young enough to start over. Start over." The phrase hung in the air between us like a challenge. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom, I made a decision. Not about starting over, that would come later, but about ending what needed to end first. Sarah and David thought they were so clever, sneaking around behind my back, treating me like I was too stupid to notice. Jennifer thought she was protecting her sister by covering for her, enabling her, encouraging her to throw away her marriage for a chance at partnership and whatever else David was promising. They all thought I was weak, passive, the kind of man who would just take whatever they dished out and ask for more. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Sunday morning, I drove back home with a truck full of supplies from the hardware store. Nothing suspicious, just the usual tools and materials I always had lying around. But this time, they weren't for fixing things. They were for breaking them. Jennifer's car was in the driveway when I got home, along with 2 others I didn't recognize. Through the living room window, I could see her entertaining friends, using my furniture, drinking my beer, acting like the lady of the house. I parked in the garage and started unloading my supplies. Everything went into the workshop in the basement, organized and cataloged like any other project. Because that's what this was, a project. The biggest, most important project of my life. Upstairs, Jennifer was holding court with 2 women I'd never seen before. They looked like her, divorced, bitter, full of opinions about men and marriage and how unfair life was to women like them. "Tom?" Jennifer called out when she saw me. Come meet my friends. I waved from the kitchen. Just getting some water. Don't mind me. This is my brother-in-law, Jennifer told her friends. Sarah's husband. The contractor, one of them said, like it was a disease. He built this whole house himself, Jennifer added, and there was something almost mocking in her tone. Very handy. Very handy. Yes, I was about to be very handy indeed. I went down to my workshop and started planning. Sarah would be home in a few hours, full of stories about her fake conference and her networking opportunities. She'd probably mention some interesting people she'd met, some new contacts she'd made. All lies, of course, but delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never been caught. Jennifer would back up whatever story Sarah told, adding little details to make it more believable. They were a good team, the two of them. Partners in deception. But every partnership has weaknesses. Pressure points where the right amount of force can bring the whole structure crashing down. I was about to find those pressure points, and when I did, I was going to press them until something broke. Sarah came home around 6, looking relaxed and satisfied in a way that made my stomach turn. She hugged me like she'd missed me, told me all about the fascinating seminars and the valuable connections she'd made. "How was your mother?" she asked. "Good. She sends her love. I'm sure she does." We had dinner together, the three of us, like a happy family. Sarah talked about her weekend, Jennifer added supportive comments, and I listened to every lie with a smile on my face. But inside, I was counting, cataloging, preparing. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd successfully deceived the simple contractor, that they'd pulled one over on the dumb husband who was too trusting to see what was right in front of him. They had no idea that the dumb husband had been taking notes, learning their patterns, studying their weaknesses, and planning their destruction. After dinner, I went down to my workshop and opened a new notebook. At the top of the first page, I wrote, Project Sarah. Below that, I started making lists, names, dates, places, weaknesses, everything I'd learned about my wife's affair, her boss's vulnerabilities, her sister's secrets. By the time I finished, I had the blueprint for the most satisfying construction project of my career. I was going to tear down everything they'd built on the foundation of my trust. And when I was done, there wouldn't be enough left to rebuild. Monday morning brought the first crack in their perfect little conspiracy. I was having coffee with Mike at the diner downtown when Sarah's colleague Janet walked in. Janet was one of the junior associates at the firm, young and eager and completely oblivious to office politics. She spotted me immediately and came over with a big smile. "Tom, how are you? I haven't seen you at any of the firm events lately." "Been busy with work," I said. "You know how it is." "Oh, I totally understand. Sarah's been so busy too, especially with all the travel. Boston, Vermont, that conference in Hartford next month." Mike raised an eyebrow. Sarah hadn't mentioned Hartford. "Janet," I said carefully, "when you say Vermont, do you mean for work?" "Well, sort of. I mean, David arranged it as a working retreat. Strategy sessions, case planning. Very intensive." She giggled. "Sarah said you couldn't make it because of your construction schedule." "Right, my schedule." Janet kept talking, completely unaware that she was dismantling my wife's lies with every word. The Vermont trip had been presented to the office as a working retreat for Sarah and David. The Hartford conference was supposedly a tax law seminar that would help with Sarah's partnership track. All lies. All carefully constructed deceptions that allowed my wife to spend romantic weekends with her boss while maintaining her professional reputation. After Janet left, Mike leaned back in his chair. "So she's not just cheating. She's lying to everyone, including the people who are covering for her." "What do you mean?" I told him about Jennifer's friends, about the way she'd talked about Sarah's networking and career advancement. Jennifer thought she was helping Sarah build a better life. She had no idea that Sarah was just using her as an alibi while she destroyed her marriage. "That's cold," Mike said, "even for Sarah." It gets worse. I checked our credit card statements last night. Sarah's been using our joint account to pay for some of these trips. The lingerie, the hotel dinners, even a spa day in Vermont. I'm literally paying for my wife's affair. Mike whistled low. Brother, you need to end this. I am ending it, just not the way they expect. That afternoon, I drove to David's car dealership. Premium Motors sat on the main drag downtown, all glass and chrome and expensive cars that most people in our town couldn't afford. David's office was on the second floor, overlooking the showroom like a king surveying his domain. I didn't go inside. I just sat in my truck across the street, watching, learning his patterns. David arrived at 10:30, driving a silver BMW that probably cost more than I made in a year. He parked in the reserved spot closest to the door, checked his reflection in the side mirror, and strutted into the building like he owned the world. Maybe he thought he did. Successful business, expensive car, young wife at home, and my wife on the side. From his perspective, life was pretty good. I was about to change his perspective. Around noon, David emerged with two other men in expensive suits. They got into his BMW and drove toward the country club on the edge of town. Lunch meeting, probably. The kind of networking that actually involved networking instead of adultery. I followed at a distance, not because I needed to know where they were going, but because I wanted to see how David acted when he wasn't sneaking around behind someone's back. Confident, I discovered. Entitled. The kind of man who'd never had to worry about consequences because he'd never faced any. That was about to change too. Tuesday evening, Sarah announced another late night at the office. Big case, she explained. David wants me to review all the depositions before the client meeting tomorrow. Which case? I asked. She hesitated for just a moment. The Morrison divorce. Very complicated asset division. The Morrison divorce had been settled 3 weeks ago. I knew because Sarah had celebrated with expensive champagne, talking about how the settlement would look good in her partnership review. Sounds important, I said. It is. Don't wait up. After Sarah left, I called the office. The receptionist answered on the second ring. Hendricks, Morrison, and Associates. Hi, this is Tom Bradley, Sarah's husband. She forgot some papers at home, and I wanted to drop them off. Is she still there? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bradley. Sarah left about an hour ago. Can I take a message? No message, thanks. I hung up and sat in my kitchen, staring at my phone. Sarah had lied about working late, lied about the case, lied about where she was going. She was probably at David's condo right now, the one I'd found the address for in her email. Jennifer came in from the garage, looking pleased with herself. Sarah working late again? She asked. So she says. She's really dedicated. I admire that about her. Jennifer, I said, what do you know about David Morrison? David Morrison? You mean Sarah's boss? His name is David Morrison? Jennifer frowned. No, his name is David Hendricks. He's the senior partner. Why? Sarah said she was working on the Morrison case tonight. The Morrison case was finished weeks ago. Sarah told me. Jennifer stopped, understanding dawning on her face. Told you what? Nothing. I must have misunderstood. But she hadn't misunderstood. She'd caught Sarah in a lie, and now she was trying to cover for her. The loyal sister protecting her sibling even when that sibling was making a fool of both of them. Jennifer, I said quietly, do you know where Sarah really is tonight? She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. The truth struggling against loyalty, honesty fighting with family obligation. Tom, she said finally, sometimes marriages go through rough patches. It doesn't mean what? That my wife is cheating on me with her boss? That she's been lying to me for months? That you've been helping her do it? I haven't been helping her do anything. You've been covering for her. Making excuses. Backing up her stories. I've been supporting my sister through a difficult time. What about supporting me? I'm family too, aren't I? Jennifer looked away. It's complicated, Tom. No, it's not. It's actually very simple. Sarah is cheating on me, and you're helping her get away with it. Sarah deserves to be happy. And I don't? You're a good man, Tom. But you and Sarah, you want different things. You always have. So that makes it okay for her to cheat? It makes it understandable. Understandable. My wife's affair was understandable because I wasn't good enough for her ambitions. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house. Tonight. Tom, you can't. I can. This is my house. I built it. I pay for it. And I want you gone. Jennifer stared at me like I'd slapped her. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Hotel, friend's house, back to your ex-husband? Anywhere but here. Sarah won't stand for this. Sarah doesn't get a vote anymore. Jennifer left an hour later, her car packed with the belongings she'd scattered throughout my house over the past 6 months. She didn't say goodbye, just shot me a look of pure hatred as she backed out of the driveway. Good. I was tired of being the nice guy, the understanding husband, the pushover who let people walk all over him in his own home. Sarah came home around midnight, smelling like expensive cologne and looking thoroughly satisfied. She found me waiting in the living room. You're up late, she said. We need to talk. Something in my tone made her pause. About what? About David. About Vermont. About the Morrison case that was settled 3 weeks ago. The color drained from her face. Tom, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations. Very creative. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're having an affair with David Hendricks. You've been lying to me about it for months, and you've been using our joint account to pay for your romantic getaways. Sarah sat down heavily on the couch. How long have you known? Long enough. I never meant for this to happen, but it did happen, and you kept making it happen. Over and over again. Tom, please. We can work through this. Can we? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've already worked through it. You've decided what you want, and it isn't me. Sarah started crying then, the kind of tears that were supposed to make me feel guilty, make me forgive her, make me pretend this conversation had never happened. But I was done being manipulated. Where's Jennifer? She asked. Gone. I told her to leave. You had no right. I had every right. It's my house. It's our house. No, Sarah. It's my house. I designed it. I built it. I paid for it. You just lived in it. I'm your wife. Are you? Because wives don't usually screw their bosses in Vermont bed and breakfasts. She flinched like I'd hit her. Don't be crude. Don't be crude. You've been cheating on me for months, lying to my face every single day, and you're worried about me being crude. I love you, Tom. I do. But David, he understands my ambitions. He sees my potential. And I don't? You see who I was when we got married? David sees who I could become, who you could become. And who's that exactly? A woman who destroys her marriage for a partnership at a law firm? A woman who doesn't settle for less than she deserves. There it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for months. I was less than she deserved. Fine, I said. If I'm less than you deserve, then you won't mind leaving. Tom, pack your things, Sarah. You've got until tomorrow night. You can't throw me out of my own home. Watch me. I stood up and headed for the stairs. Oh, and Sarah? David might want to check his insurance coverage. I have a feeling he's going to need it. I left her sitting on the couch, crying into her hands, and went upstairs to bed. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The war had officially begun. Sarah didn't leave the next day. Instead, she hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best divorce attorney in the state. Margaret Chen, known for her aggressive tactics and her ability to destroy men in custody battles and asset divisions. Sarah was playing hardball. I found out when the papers were served at my job site Thursday morning. The Miller's kitchen renovation came to a screeching halt as a process server handed me a thick envelope full of legal documents. Thomas Bradley? That's me. You've been served. The crew gathered around as I opened the envelope. Divorce papers, restraining order, motion for temporary support, petition for exclusive use of the marital home. Sarah was trying to have me thrown out of my own house while she fought for half of everything I'd built. Jesus, Tom, said Pete, my lead carpenter. What did you do? I caught my wife cheating. And she's suing you for it? Welcome to modern marriage. I called Mike from the truck. I need a lawyer. A good one. How good? Good enough to beat Margaret Chen. Mike whistled. Sarah brought in the big guns. So will I. Mike knew a guy, Jim Walsh, a former prosecutor who'd gone into private practice specializing in men's rights cases. He'd seen Margaret Chen in action before and knew how to fight her tactics. She's going to try to paint you as an abusive husband, Jim warned me during our first meeting. Dangerous, unstable, prone to violence. The restraining order is just the beginning. Based on what evidence? She doesn't need evidence. She just needs allegations. Did you ever raise your voice to your wife? Slam a door? Throw anything? I thought about the night I'd confronted Sarah, the way I'd told her to pack her things. I told her to leave the house. How did you tell her? Firmly. Did you yell? No. Threaten her? No. Good. But it doesn't matter. She'll claim you were intimidating, that she feared for her safety. The judge will err on the side of caution and grant the restraining order. So I lose my house because my wife is cheating on me? Temporarily. We'll fight it, but these things take time. Time I didn't have. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. If Sarah won, I'd be locked out of my own home while she and David played house in the place I'd built with my own hands. That weekend, I put my backup plan into motion. Saturday morning, I drove to David's dealership. It was closed, but I knew he'd be there. I'd been watching his patterns for weeks. Sure enough, his BMW was parked in its usual spot. I didn't go inside. Instead, I walked around to the service bay in the back, where the mechanics worked on customer cars. The bay doors were open, and I could see David's personal mechanic working on a vintage Corvette. Nice car, I said. The mechanic looked up. Yeah, she's a beauty. 1967. Stingray, David's pride and joy. David Hendricks? That's right. You know him? We have mutual friends. I'm Tom Bradley. The mechanic wiped his hands on a rag. Rick Santos. I do all of David's work. Cars, boats, motorcycles. The man's got expensive taste. I bet. Must be nice having that kind of money. Nice for him. Hell for his wife. His wife? Rick glanced around to make sure we were alone. Between you and me, the man's a pig. Cheats on his wife constantly. She's a sweet lady, doesn't deserve what he puts her through. Interesting. David was married and his wife didn't know about his affairs. That was information I could use. That's rough, I said. Some guys don't know how good they have it. Tell me about it. His wife comes in here sometimes, asks me to check the mileage on his car. She suspects something but can't prove it. Maybe someone should tell her. Rick laughed bitterly. Right. And lose the best customer I've got? David spends $20,000 a year on car maintenance alone. I spent another few minutes talking to Rick, learning about David's habits, his schedule, his weaknesses. By the time I left, I had everything I needed for phase 1 of my plan. Sunday evening, I called David's wife. Mrs. Hendricks? This is Tom Bradley. I think we need to talk. I'm sorry. Do I know you? No, but we have something in common. We're both married to people who are cheating on us. There was a long silence. Then, "I think you have the wrong number. Your husband David is having an affair with my wife Sarah. They've been meeting at hotels, taking weekend trips together, using company resources to fund their relationship." Another silence. "Who is this really?" "I'm Tom Bradley. My wife works at your husband's law firm. I have proof of their affair, photos, emails, credit card receipts. Would you like to see them?" "Yes," she said quietly. "I would." We met at a coffee shop Monday morning, 2 hours before my restraining order hearing. Linda Hendricks was exactly what Rick had described, a sweet woman who didn't deserve what her husband was putting her through. I showed her everything: the text messages, the emails, the hotel receipts, the photos from Vermont. She looked at each piece of evidence with the calm detachment of someone who'd been expecting this moment for a long time. "How long?" she asked when I finished. "At least 6 months, probably longer." I knew. I suspected. But seeing it laid out like this. "I'm sorry. I know this is hard. Actually, it's liberating. I've been going crazy thinking I was paranoid, imagining things. Now I know I wasn't." Linda Hendricks was about to become my secret weapon. The restraining order hearing was a disaster, just as Jim Walsh had predicted. Sarah took the stand wearing her most conservative suit, playing the role of the frightened wife perfectly. "He told me to get out of my own home," she testified. "He was angry, intimidating. I feared for my safety." "Did he threaten you physically?" Margaret Chen asked. "Not in so many words, but the implication was clear." "What about his behavior leading up to this confrontation?" "He'd been acting strange for weeks. Watching me, following me, going through my personal belongings. I think he may have been stalking me." Stalking. I'd been watching my own wife in my own house, and now I was a stalker. The judge granted the temporary restraining order. I had 24 hours to collect my belongings and find somewhere else to live. "I'm sorry, Tom," Jim said as we left the courthouse. "We'll appeal, but for now—" "It's fine," I said. "This is actually perfect." "Perfect? You just lost your house. Temporarily. And now Sarah thinks she's won. She's going to get careless." That afternoon, I moved into a motel on the outskirts of town. It was a dump, but it was temporary. I had bigger plans. Tuesday morning, Linda Hendricks filed for divorce. She also called an emergency partners meeting at David's law firm, where she presented evidence of his affair with an employee. David was suspended pending an internal investigation. By noon, the story was all over town. David Hendricks, pillar of the community, caught cheating with one of his associates. His wife was taking him for everything he was worth, and his professional reputation was in ruins. Sarah called me that evening, hysterical. "What did you do?" I told the truth. "David's been suspended. His wife is divorcing him. The whole firm is in chaos." "Sounds like you picked the wrong horse, Sarah." "This is your fault." "No, this is your fault. You made the choice to have an affair. Now you get to live with the consequences. I'll destroy you in court." "Good luck with that. Your sugar daddy just lost his job and half his assets. Hope you saved up for Margaret Chen's legal fees." I hung up and opened a beer. Phase 1 was complete. David was neutralized, his marriage destroyed, his career in ruins. Sarah was about to discover that partnerships and promotions were hard to come by when your mentor was a disgraced adulterer. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Wednesday morning, I drove to Jennifer's new apartment across town. She answered the door in her bathrobe, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "What do you want, Tom?" "To talk." "We have nothing to talk about." "We have plenty to talk about, like your divorce settlement with Brad." Jennifer's face went white. "What about it?" "The part where you lied about your income to get higher alimony payments. The part where you hid assets in your mother's name. The part where you committed perjury in family court. You don't know what you're talking about." I know exactly what I'm talking about. I also know that Brad's been looking for evidence of fraud for 2 years. He'd be very interested in the documents I found in Sarah's email. Jennifer had been using Sarah's legal expertise to hide assets during her divorce, lying to the court about her financial situation to maximize her settlement. It was fraud, and it was a felony. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to call Sarah and tell her to drop the divorce proceedings." "I can't do that." "Sure you can. You can tell her that continuing this fight will expose both of you to criminal charges. You can explain that I have evidence of your perjury and her participation in it. You can make her understand that the smart play is to walk away quietly. And if I don't? Then I send everything to Brad's lawyer and the district attorney's office. You go to prison for fraud and Sarah loses her law license." Jennifer stared at me for a long moment. "I never thought you had it in you." "Neither did Sarah." "That was your first mistake." Thursday afternoon, Sarah called Jim Walsh's office and asked to discuss settlement terms. By Friday, we had a deal. Sarah would drop all claims to the house and my business in exchange for a modest cash settlement and my agreement not to pursue criminal charges against her or Jennifer. Saturday morning, I moved back into my house. Sarah had cleared out her belongings and left the keys on the kitchen counter. 22 years of marriage ended with a pile of legal documents and an empty closet. I should have felt sad. Instead, I felt free. That evening, Mike came over with a case of beer and a bottle of whiskey. "So," he said, settling into my living room like he belonged there, "what now?" "Now I rebuild. The business, the house, my life. All of it." "Any regrets?" I thought about it for a moment. 22 years was a long time to throw away. But those years had been built on a foundation of lies and compromises and settling for less than I deserved. "No," I said finally. "No regrets?" Mike raised his beer. "To new beginnings. To new beginnings." We drank to the future, and for the first time in years, I was actually looking forward to it. 6 months later, I was sitting in my renovated kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, when I came across an interesting item in the business section. Hendricks, Morrison, and Associates dissolves partnership. The article was brief but satisfying. David Hendricks had been forced out of the firm following the scandal. His former partners had bought out his share for pennies on the dollar and rebranded themselves as Morrison and Associates. David was now working solo practice out of a strip mall office, handling divorce cases and personal injury claims. Sarah wasn't mentioned in the article, but I knew what had happened to her. Without David's protection, her path to partnership had evaporated. She'd been quietly let go 3 months after our divorce was finalized, officially due to restructuring, unofficially because no one wanted to work with the woman who'd destroyed the senior partner's marriage. Last I heard, she was working for a small firm in the next county, handling real estate closings and writing wills, a far cry from the high-powered corporate lawyer she'd dreamed of becoming. Jennifer had moved back in with their mother after Brad's lawyer successfully sued her for fraud. She'd been ordered to repay 2 years of falsely obtained alimony, plus interest and penalties. Her credit was ruined, her reputation destroyed, and her dreams of easy money evaporated. As for me, business was booming. Word had gotten around town about what Sarah and David had done, and public opinion had swung heavily in my favor. The wronged husband who'd fought back and won. People liked that story, especially people who needed construction work done. I'd expanded the business, hired 2 full-time crews, and bought a new truck to replace the old Ford. Not because I didn't love the Ford, but because I could afford to love it as a weekend hobby instead of relying on it for daily work. The house was mine again, truly mine. I'd renovated the master bedroom, updated the kitchen, and turned Jennifer's old apartment into a proper workshop. Every change erased a little more of the past and made the place feel like home again. Mike knocked on the door around noon, letting himself in like always. "You see the paper?" he asked. "Saw it." David's really come down in the world. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. You hear about Sarah? What about her? She's engaged. That stopped me cold. To who? Some accountant from her new firm. Guy named Peterson. Quiet type, drives a Honda Civic, lives in a condo. I absorbed this information. Sarah had gone from dreaming of partnership and power to settling for an accountant in a Honda Civic. The woman who'd thought I wasn't good enough for her ambitions had ended up with someone who made less money than I did. Good for her, I said, and meant it. You're not bothered? Why would I be bothered? She got what she deserved. Mike studied my face. You really are over her. I was over her the day I found those text messages. Everything after that was just cleanup. We had lunch and talked about business, about Mike's plans to expand the gym, about my idea of building custom homes again. The dreams I'd put aside for Sarah's security were coming back to life. Around 3, my phone rang. Unknown number. Tom Bradley. Tom, it's Linda. Linda Hendricks, David's ex-wife. We'd stayed in touch sporadically since the divorce proceedings, bonding over our shared experience of betrayal and recovery. Linda, hi. How are you doing? Great, actually. Really great. I'm calling because I have some news I thought you'd want to hear. What kind of news? David's in trouble. Big trouble. The state bar is investigating him for misuse of client funds. Apparently, he's been dipping into his trust account to pay personal expenses. That was serious. Lawyers who stole from clients didn't just lose their licenses. They went to prison. How do you know? My lawyer heard it from his lawyer. David's trying to negotiate a plea deal, but it doesn't look good. They're talking about criminal charges. David Hendricks, the man who destroyed my marriage and tried to steal my wife, was about to lose everything. His career, his freedom, his future. All because he couldn't keep his hands off other people's money any more than he could keep his hands off other people's wives. Thanks for letting me know, Linda. I thought you deserved to hear it. After everything he put us through. After Linda hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about justice. Not the legal kind, that was messy and complicated and didn't always work the way it should, but the real kind. The kind that came from making choices and living with consequences. Sarah had chosen to cheat on me with her boss. Now she was engaged to an accountant and working in a strip mall law office. David had chosen to destroy his marriage for a fling with an employee. Now he was facing criminal charges and professional ruin. Jennifer had chosen to help them both, covering for Sarah and committing fraud in her own divorce. Now she was broke and living with her mother. I had chosen to fight back instead of rolling over. Now I was free, successful, and genuinely happy for the first time in years. The phone rang again. This time, it was a number I recognized. My mother. Tommy? I just wanted to call and tell you how proud I am of you. Thanks, Mom. I know it's been a hard year with the divorce and everything. But you handled it like a man. Like your father would have. My father. He'd died when I was 25, too young to really understand what he'd tried to teach me about life, about work, about standing up for yourself. But I understood now. I learned from the best, I said. You did good, son. You built something real, something that lasts. That's more than most people can say. After she hung up, I walked through my house, looking at everything I'd built and rebuilt and built again. The floors I'd laid, the walls I'd framed, the fixtures I'd installed. Every nail and screw and joint was exactly where I'd put it, exactly the way I'd wanted it. This was my house, my life, my victory. The doorbell rang around 6. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, I found a woman I didn't recognize holding a bottle of wine and a nervous smile. Mr. Bradley? I'm Susan Morrison. I'm sorry to bother you, but I heard you might be available for a construction project. Susan Morrison. The name was familiar, and then I placed it. She was the ex-wife from the Morrison divorce case, the one Sarah had used as an alibi for her affair. What kind of project? A complete renovation. I just bought a house across town and it needs everything. New kitchen, updated bathrooms, refinished floors. I heard you do excellent work. I do, but I'm pretty booked up right now. I'm willing to wait. And to pay premium rates for premium work. I looked at Susan Morrison, really looked at her. She was attractive in a natural way, confident without being arrogant, successful without being pretentious. Everything Sarah had pretended to be but never actually was. "Why don't you come in?" I said. "We can talk about it." She stepped into my house, looking around with genuine appreciation. "This is beautiful work. Did you do all of this yourself?" "Every bit of it." "It shows." You can tell when something is built with care. Built with care. Yes, that's exactly what this was. What I was. What I'd always been, even when the people around me couldn't see it. We talked for 2 hours about her renovation project, about construction techniques, about the difference between building something fast and building something right. She understood quality, appreciated craftsmanship, valued the kind of work I did. When she left, we had a deal. 6 months of work, good money, and the chance to build something new with someone who actually appreciated what I brought to the table. Standing in my doorway, watching her drive away, I realized something important. The best revenge wasn't destroying Sarah and David and Jennifer, though that had been satisfying. The best revenge was building a better life without them. I was 44 years old, successful, free, and for the first time in decades, genuinely excited about the future. I had work I loved, a house I'd built with my own hands, and the respect of people who understood what that meant. Sarah had thought she was trading up when she chose David over me. Instead, she'd traded a man who built things for a man who destroyed them. She'd given up someone who loved her despite her flaws for someone who used her and threw her away. Her loss, my gain. I closed the door and walked back to my kitchen, where the newspaper still lay open to the article about David's firm. I folded it up and threw it in the trash. Old news, ancient history. Tomorrow, I would start planning Susan Morrison's renovation. Next month, I would break ground on the custom home project I'd been designing. Next year, maybe I'd expand the business again, hire more crews, take on bigger projects. The future was wide open, full of possibilities I'd never allowed myself to imagine when I was trapped in a marriage with someone who saw me as a stepping stone to something better. Now I was the something better. I opened a beer and walked out to my back deck, looking over the yard I'd landscaped, the garden I'd planted, the life I'd built from nothing but determination and skill, and the refusal to accept less than I deserved. Sarah had called me a handyman, like it was an insult. She'd been right about one thing. I was handy. I could fix anything, build anything, create something beautiful and lasting out of raw materials and vision, including my own life. The sun was setting behind the trees I'd planted when I first built this house, 23 years ago. Back then, I'd thought I was building it for Sarah and me, for the family we'd planned to raise, for the future we'd promised to share. But I'd really been building it for this moment, for the man I'd become after everything else was stripped away, for the life I'd earned by refusing to give up, give in, or settle for someone else's definition of what I deserved. I raised my beer to the sunset, to the house, to the future. "Here's to building something that lasts," I said out loud. And for the first time in 23 years, I truly meant it.